There's a question that I get asked all the time. And honestly, I've asked it myself for years. Why do some people who seem less smart and less hardworking have better careers? For a long time, I wondered if something was wrong with me. Like maybe I wasn't talented enough or confident enough. But after many risks, mistakes, good choices, and bad ones in my career, I've come to realize something. Your career is not the ladder that other people told you that it is. It's a garden. And every garden grows or dies based on three things: the seed, the soil, and the climate. The seed is your skills, your experiences, your natural abilities. The soil is where you work, like your company, your manager, your coworkers. And the climate is the broader picture, like your profession, your industry, even your geography. End of the day, you are the gardener of your career. And you're making decisions about these three things every day, whether you notice them or not. My intent here is not to tell you this is the right seed for you. This is the soil, and this is the climate. If anyone says that to you, you must run in the opposite direction. I'm just here to share what has worked and not worked for me in the hopes that you can learn from my mistakes instead of your own. So let's talk about the seed first. The seed is the one thing that every gardener is in full control of. It's your skill set, your personality, curiosity, whatever sets your heart on fire. And like any seed, it grows fastest when you nurture the plant that you were meant to become, not the one that someone else wanted you to be. I don't believe in destiny, but I do believe this, that we are born with certain things that just make us light up. The problem is that a lot of us forget about these things as we grow older. Like when I was young, my dad wanted me to be a doctor. Like he imagined me in this white coat, following in his footsteps because he studied Eastern medicine. But my seed was never in medicine. Like I was that kid who loved reading classic literature. I would nerd out about Geoffrey Chaucer and 1400s medieval novels. I spoke on national TV and radio as a child. I just loved using my words to move people. And when I won a national business case competition in high school one day, I realized that I'd been growing a very different seed than the one that my parents had planted for me. And that was okay. You have to nurture your seed because they don't grow in one day. Like mine definitely did not. My skills grew slowly and painfully and awkwardly, the same way that any gardener has to figure out how to care for a fragile plant for the first time. But one thing I know for sure, my 9 to 5 jobs taught me how to apply the skills that I had, but my 5 to 9 was where I actually grew those skills. Like long before Mr. Jonathan Office became a full-time business, I'd been coaching for years. I made so many cringeworthy YouTube videos, wrote clumsy newsletters, spent hundreds of hours coaching my method with my clients until it finally clicked. Like the one thing I hadn't tried was podcasting. Who knows? Maybe my podcasts right now suck. Maybe they'll be way better in the future. The point is, I didn't persist through the tough times because someone made me do it. I did it because some part of me naturally wanted to communicate, to simplify, to help people. Or in the words of Naval Ravikant, do what feels like play to you, but work to others. Another thing that I made sure to do was to not lose my seed. Or at least I tried to. I made some mistakes along the way. When I was a new grad right out of school, I convinced myself that the right way to use my seed was to get into a business strategy role because that's what everyone around me was chasing. It was the prestigious path to go to companies like Boston Consulting Group and McKinsey, Bain. So I assumed that I should want that too, right? Well, around that time, I had a chance to join this tiny company called Wealthsimple. They were a scrappy startup, just 12 people crammed into a tiny office. I remember meeting the CEO, who was also an alumnus from my school, and he asked me to write a sample for this content marketing role that they were hiring for. At the time, it was the only opening they had because they were a startup. But I didn't want to be a marketer. So I remember I just ignored his email. And looking back, I realized how foolish I was because somewhere along the way, I lost my seed. I thought that I wanted to work in strategy, but the truth is I didn't even know what strategy meant. I should have recognized that I could have been a brilliant marketer. I'd written a book at the age of 9. I interned in brand management at P&G. The signs were all there. But 5 years later, I finally joined Wealthsimple too late. By then, it had already grown to become a unicorn. And today, it's valued at $10 billion. So I missed out on the biggest opportunity of my career because I refused to look myself in the mirror and to see who I really was. So if your career feels slow, then start by asking yourself, am I growing the seed that belongs to me or the one that someone else planted? So now let's talk about the soil, the second part of your garden. Even the healthiest seed can fail in bad soil. And if I'm honest with myself, choosing the right soil has always been the biggest weakness in my own career garden. In particular, 2 soil mistakes are really painful for me. The first was letting others to choose my soil. Early in my career, a well-known corporation headhunted me. So everyone around me said it was the smart move. John, you're going to this big company. It's a good brand. It's a safe job. It's going to be awesome for you. You can finally leave this no-name company. So I was reluctant. I knew I loved startups, but I ignored my gut and I joined that company. And within a month, I knew that I had made a mistake because the soil there was dry. It was slow, uninspired, no growth. I remember we built 5-year plans with, these crazy $10 million expected payoffs, but we knew that our VP would cut the budget inevitably and we'd settle at an imaginary $5 million payoff. And then we'd probably never even see funding anyways. This project would never, ever get off the ground. It was soul crushing to work there. And I stayed too long because leaving felt like admitting failure. But that job taught me one lesson that I will never forget. Great soil can grow even the most average seeds, but bad soil kills great ones. You cannot outwork bad soil. The second mistake that I made was not knowing good soil when I see it. This was back in 2016. I got an offer from a relatively unknown company called Shopify, and it was for an enterprise account manager role. So they just gone public at $3 a share. And I told myself, well, they're already public. They can't grow much more. They're not a sexy startup. I'll pass. Well, I joined the company a few years later after they had grown from $3 to $200 a share. Just like Wealthsimple, I only recognized the rocket ship once it was already in the sky. And it took 2 rocket ships lifting off in my face to finally realize that you can't spot great soil if you have poor vision. I didn't know how to evaluate a company's potential in my 20s. I didn't know the signs of strong leadership or compounding momentum. I didn't know how to tell the difference between soil that nourishes and soil that drains. I didn't know anything in my 20s. And when your own vision is limited, naturally, you just borrow someone else's, right? Your parents, your friends, societies. If that sounds familiar, you know the pain. So if you're choosing a company, a team, a manager, don't trust your limited vision blindly. Try to find somebody who has already taken the same steps that you want to take. It could be a mentor, a career coach, a thought leader. I know it's a career coach telling you to find a career coach. Surprising. But just Find someone who's taken those steps ahead of you, right? You've got to borrow their mental models and ways of seeing the world until you've grown your own. It's just common sense. So if you're feeling stuck, ask yourself, is the problem me, or is it the soil around me that's starving my growth? Finally, let's talk about the climate. Climate is the most underrated part of career growth. It's the broader environment around you, like your industry, your country, your timing. And you can be smart and hardworking and capable. Your seed can be amazing, and the soil can be really rich. But if your climate is shrinking, you will always feel like you're running uphill. But the opposite can also be true, right? If your climate is booming, it acts like rocket fuel. Like, look at the number of people who've risen to prominence as a result of the latest AI boom. When I graduated in the 2010s, it was not the golden age of AI, it was the golden age of tech in general, with companies like Uber and Airbnb reimagining what was possible. And I wanted to be a part of it any way I could. So I networked my butt off and I finally joined the Series C startup. They didn't pay me much at all. I think they paid me like 50 grand, but that one experience broke me into tech, and it helped me to land offers eventually at companies like Google, Uber, and Shopify after that. And from my 20s to 30s, I 5x'd my salary. Of course I worked hard, but it would not have happened as easily if I were in any other industry. This I recognize. The climate mattered a lot. So before you commit to an industry or profession, it's worth pausing to validate the climate. Look for small signs of momentum, like rising job openings, more companies investing, and skills that are becoming more in demand, not less. Ultimately, a rising climate can make you look lucky, but a declining one can make you look lazy, even if you're working hard. So, I want to end here. If you're feeling stuck right now, please know this. It's not because you're not talented. It's not because you're unlucky. You just need to do some work in your garden. Ask yourself, am I growing the skills that match who I really am? Am I cultivating my seed? Am I in an environment that helps me to grow quickly? Is my seed in the right soil? And finally, is my industry moving up or falling behind? Did I choose the right climate? You don't have to fix everything at once. You just need to adjust one layer at a time. Remember, you're the gardener of your career, and I'm rooting for you. All right, it's melon break time. And today's topic, it's a fun one. It's time to chugwa, guys. So today, we're talking about the 2025 word of the year, which isn't even a word. I don't know if you've ever heard kids yelling 6-7. You might have seen it on TikTok or in classrooms. Nobody can fully explain what it means. But if you haven't heard about it yet, well, I was in a client call recently. She told me that she had to go off camera for a moment because her kids came home and she was going to grab them some snacks. I could hear her in the background asking her kids, how many pages do you have to read for homework? And of course, one kid screamed out, 6-7. And the other kid just lost it, like laughing hysterically. Everyone has a different theory about why kids like to say 6-7. And honestly, all of them are equally nonsensical to me. Regardless, as I mentioned, this has blown up so much that dictionary.com has crowned 6-7 the 2025 word of the year. So some psychologists note that trends like these are a healthy way for kids to connect with each other with inside jokes and to rebel against an adult world that sometimes makes too much sense, or generally it's just their way to annoy adults for fun. Well, that works both ways, you little punks. See, these kids are going to find out real quick that adults have the upper hand here. We just need to start saying it too. Trust me, if we start saying it, it will die. 6-7. So here's how you can use this at work. If you're chatting with coworkers, you can ask them, hey, did you hear that 6-7 got picked up as a word of the year? Do you know anything about this? I've heard a lot and I understand nothing. Or if you want to go more professional with your boss, you can say, it's really interesting how 6-7 is an example of counterculture. It doesn't have to mean anything, but the way that others react to it gives it all the meaning that it needs. Day Up is written, produced, and hosted with love by me, Jonathan Lee. If you want to support high-quality, free podcasting for Chinese professionals, please like and review this podcast. It would mean so much to hear from you. That's all for today. 下次再见，职场小伙伴们。